lighting equipment, and it's heavy. Good morning, everyone. Today is March 27th from an unusually beautiful, warm day. It's been spring for a few days, but it's been very cold here in New York. I cannot wait for the warmer weather to come. That's when the real fun and activities begin once it hits summer. Cannot wait for those beautiful summer sunsets. But the topic for today's video sprung about sort of in two major ways. One, it's a question I get asked fairly often, and I want to be able to show you guys the answer to that question rather than just explaining it. And number two, I missed my upload last week, which is I've never done before. I've always been uploading once per week since I started, and the sort of topic of today's video, what it's about, relates to me missing it and why I missed it, but we'll get into it. So inside this bag are 4 lights, or 3 lights. The lights inside this bag, and I use these lights for when I do my little stop motion movies, my little animations. I'm filming one today, and the question I get asked a lot is, what does that rig look like? What's the setup look like that you use, and how do you shoot stop motion? The great part is I'm shooting one of those little movies today, and I want to take you guys behind the scenes to my setup, what equipment I use, how I light it, little tips and tricks along the way that I've learned from doing these stop motion films. Hopefully will help you if you have any interest in stop motion photography. This is a lot of fun. Now the first thing you want to think about when you're doing stop motion photography is lighting. Lighting is perhaps the most important element to stop motion photography, and inside of this case are 4 studio lights, 2 large ones, 2 small ones. Now the reason why lighting is so important in stop motion photography is you're going to want to have consistent light. Because you're shooting over a longer period of time, depending on your interval time and how long your stop motion is going to be, you can be shooting for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, up to an hour. You want your light source to stay consistent so the image looks consistent. You generally want to stay away from natural light because obviously the sun moves in the sky, which changes the lighting angle, which changes the way your shot is going to look. And you want to do something more like fixed lighting, something like the studio lights, overhead lights, anything that will not change. Voila, we have our 2 lights. Now this entire setup, between the lighting equipment, the camera, and then all of the materials I'm going to use, usually takes me about 40 minutes. But the lighting should always be set up first, have your lighting fixated, and then move what you're shooting into the frame. Now to get the camera looking straight down, vertical at the floor, I use this stanchion which has an extendable arm where I can overhang the camera. And you can use whatever kind of creative rig that you have. Some people prop the camera up on 2 pieces of wood. And here is the extendable camera arm. And it has a little mount here where I can place the camera. And then I use this piece, it's actually from one of the lights that I'm not using, and it screws into the bottom of the camera, normally where you put your tripod piece. And the camera can fit. It's a little gorilla style, but it does work. And now, wait, gotta tighten that. And now you have your camera looking straight down. Now this camera here is a Canon 6D. This is not the camera I use to shoot the stop motion. The camera I'm filming on, the Canon 7D, is the camera that I use. The main reason for that is the Canon 7D has a built-in intervalometer. Really just a fancy word for a timer. So every 10 seconds or every 15 seconds, it'll take a picture and that'll be continuous until I'm done shooting. So now we have our lighting. You can see here we have our 2 big studio lights. They're evenly lit, they're focusing on one location, and no matter if I'm shooting for 5 minutes, an hour, or 2 hours, these lights will never get brighter or dimmer. They will stay one consistent color. And also when I'm filming stop motion, I usually close all the blinds as well. I make the room pretty much dark, just in case the sun goes up or down, sets or rises, it's not going to affect the look of the image. Now typically, when I film stop motion, I use a white piece of cardboard as the base. And the reason why I like white cardboard or anything white is that it's very clean and it makes it easy for me to transition animations to video. What I mean by that is video is shot typically in 1080p, so 1920 by 1080p. Those are the dimensions of video. Now when you take pictures, the dimensions are different. In this case, I believe my camera, I take pictures in 5,200, 300 something by 3,000 something. Now what happens, if I were to transition from an animation to a video, the image is going to stretch out because the dimensions of the image are larger than the dimension of the video. If it's a blank white background, I can go from video to animation or animation to video and it looks completely identical because it's still one solid white background. If I were to shoot on the floor, for example, it looked very stretched out if I went to one or the other, or it looked shrunken in if I went to one to the other. This is the method I found that works really well. They're cheap, they're disposable. There's definitely other ways to do this and other people have other ways to do this. I just found that this works the best for me. The longest part of this entire process is this here, is actually setting up the shot. Lighting is fairly simple, especially when you're using studio lights because they remain consistent. Setting up the rig takes a minute or two, but really getting the angle right and finding out where your dimensions are so that when you actually go to shoot, you get the right shot. That's what takes the longest amount of preparation. So now that you have your lighting set up, you have your camera rig set up, you have your shot set up, now it's time to figure out what materials you're going to be using in the stop motion. Now in this case, I have some marbles. So I have 160 marbles. I have some tin buckets. I got some wood blocks, got a couple wood blocks, got a birdhouse. I'm not going to give away what I'm filming today, but it does have something to do with me missing my upload last week. Now, it's the only hint I'm going to give you guys. You just have to wait and see for the finished product. Now, once you're done shooting your stop motion, you're going to have a ton of images saved on your camera, and that's really all stop motion photography is it's images being played back in sequential order at a certain frame rate. Really what we would akin to a time lapse. Now, most time lapses are shot in 24 to 30 frames per second, at least what I shoot them at. But stop motion is filmed at anywhere from 10 to 15 frames per second. I usually stick to 10 to 12. 15 I found is a bit too fast, but if you notice that your image is too slow, you can speed it up and vice versa. I usually stick to around 12. Now, as the sun is setting on this gorgeous spring Monday night, it's time to wrap this up. The shoot went well, still more shoot to come. Didn't finish everything today, but we're getting there. I hope this video was helpful. If any of you are interested in stop motion photography, give you some tips, give you some tricks, something to try out if you're new to it. Just things I've learned along the way. I'm fairly new to it myself, but if I can help anybody out, that's fantastic. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed the video. On that note, lots of love, lots of respect. I'll speak to everybody soon.